Hey everybody, I'm back, and this time with Paul Rietzel. Hey Paul,
Great. How are you doing?
congratulations on clinching your top four spot, and
Thank you
also happy birthday.
very much. Thank you. Yeah. Nothing like some brutal jet lag in vintage Super League to celebrate your birthday.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing it with us. Those are some great games we played.
Yeah, definitely. I think I made a pretty critical error in the second game by not. I had an ingot chewer, and I probably should have just chewed your Ravager, and then uh, I could have grudged your hangerback in response and not given you 35 Thopter tokens or whatever.
Oh,
But
so you had Ingot Chewer the turn that you cast Ancient Grudge.
yeah,
Hmm.
my for some reason in my head I thought I wanted you to do that and that I was going to blow you out when I made green mana, but I neglected kind of how close it was going to be because I had so many removal spells in my hand.
Yeah. So I suppose my way to win that game would have been that first turn when I attacked with the Ravager for three. If I had sacked my two Moxes then, you'd have had two less life. Also, in retrospect, I maybe should have just main phase sacked my Ravager to make the seven hanger back walker to play around the play that you just described of killing the hanger back in response to the Ravager trigger, the modular trigger.
Yeah, it's been a
But
while. I mean, a lot of these interactions are things that maybe I was familiar with, and I kind of had the rhythm of how to interact with Hangerback Walker and Arcbound Ravager. But in Vintage, especially where some of the removal is sorcery speed based, some is instant based, some involves taking control of something, and others involve damaging them. Sequencing and strategically picking things is very, very difficult. And both of us, I think, coming off of 16-hour flights, we'll watch that. We'll watch that match and find plenty that we could have done differently.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, three close games of Vintage. It's hard to claim that anyone could play that perfectly.
Speaking of playing perfectly, we're going to watch Shuhei Nakamura and Luis Scott-Vargas, fresh off his top eight at Pro Tour Eldritch Moon, in a matchup that has significant playoff implications for this season of the Vintage Super League. Um, Shuhei is in. He's going to be either the number one seed all by himself or part of a tie. Luis, however, needs to do some work. He's going to need to beat Shuhei and then hope for his good friend Eric Froelich to lose in the ultimate match of the evening.
Right. So winning his match is certainly step one for Luis.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be Luis playing Jeskai Mentor against Shuhei playing the deck that has yet to fail him, Oath of Druids.
Yeah, and historically, I say historically, but I mean in the 4 months that I played Vintage, uh, I've wanted to be on the Oath of Druid side of this matchup. Just the fact that it can blue a little bit better, if you will, to use blue as a verb. Um, you know, and that Luis kind of really needs to get a creature in play in order to provide a threat. I mean, there are planeswalkers avenues of pressuring, but really his best plan is mentor, and that walks right into Shuhei's desired idea of flipping over an Oriok Salvagers.
All right, well, let's get to it. Okay, so we have LSV on the play with a zero land hand. Um, I predict he'll take a mulligan, but maybe if he's feeling particularly saucy, he'll keep it. This looks much better. Effectively, an 8 card hand with the Ancestral Recall.
And if you notice Shuhei's hand, he's lacking the turn one oath that we normally see him with a Mox, Orchard, and Force of Will backup. So one can only assume that that's the top card of his library.
Yeah, even without the oath, this is an excellent hand, though. Just some nice counter spells and only 1 mana off of casting Jace. The only flaw I would say is that Mindbreak Trap is not very good at protecting your own threat. You more would use that as the capstone for a counterspell battle when your opponent's trying to force something through.
Mhm. Now, this is a place where my vintage and experience certainly would shine through. Luis just took a look at Shuhei's hand, noticed that he has a misstep and a force of will, and then elected to not start a war over his own ancestral recall. If he did do that, it would force Shuhei to either use his force of will or allow it to resolve. And Luis would really leave Shuhei on very few resources very early in the game. Shuhei electing not, or Luis electing not to take that line.
Yeah, and it's interesting if he's intending to not cast the ancestral recall, he could lead with preordain. Not exactly sure what Shuhei would do in response to that, but certain players I think would go ahead and bite on mental misstepping the preordain, especially having the force of will back up.
Mm-hmm. Of
But yeah,
course,
that's going to depend on the type of player that Shuhei is, and he, I haven't been watching close enough for enough weeks to know whether he's the conservative type of player who might just let it resolve and save the mental misstep for a more important battle.
of course, you know, with Luis being a new father, you can never discount the possibility of Naya having taken that turn for him. So it's always possible. We see. Looks like we've lost Shuei's hand cam. I wonder if perhaps we've lost the
Lost Shuhei
Japanese
entirely,
volcano
maybe.
himself. Oh no.
No, that certainly can't be his hand. The oath isn't the eighth card.
Yeah, no.
There
So
must be something wrong with Magic Online.
right. So we'll get Worth in here to figure out exactly what it is that happened with Shuhei's opening hand that he called for. Um, this must feel like when you order something at a restaurant and you've been waiting for a while, but then they give you the wrong thing, and you're thinking, "I'm pretty hungry, you know, I want to eat, but that's not what I ordered." So unfairly being made to wait a turn for his Oath of Druids.
Oh, okay. I think the answer to our question might be that Luis had scryed a card he wanted to the top.
No, because he resolved the Jaxian probe on the first turn,
Oh
so
yeah, you're absolutely right.
there's nothing he can do with that. He is very lucky though. So again, it's possible he just assumed he would draw something that. Oh, there's the Oath of Druids for
Wow.
yeah. Again, kind of brutal to have to wait for it, but and now Luis is in in kind of a world of pain here already.
Yep. So Shuhei force of willed the young pyromancer, perhaps a move he would not have gone for if he knew Oath of Druids was coming off the top. Um, so Luis at least now doesn't have any more permission to worry about. The problem is he's not well equipped in game one to fight through whichever creature Shuhei hits off the Oath of Druids.
Mm-hmm. Right, and we've seen Shuhei will usually give you about one more turn after this. I mean, there are ways he can just hit Grizzlebrand and kill you immediately, but um, Luis suddenly with very little time to find some sort of a countermeasure.
And even having a dig through time in hand, the Oath of Druids self mill aspect is going to help out Shuhei a lot here. So even if Luis, somehow was able to Swords to Plowshares one of the creatures and try to make it a little bit more of a fair fight, Shuhei is well equipped to win a fair fight as well.
Right. If you're Luis, you're hoping the top card of his library was Aureox Salvagers. Of course, it's not. He hits the perfect Grizzlebrand, finds a Soul Ring so he can find G. Yeah. Luis did not fly home with the luck that carried him to the top 8 of Pro Tour Eldritch Moon. Now, the interesting question here for Shuhei, he has a lot of options to find that back-breaking time walk. Is he going to grizzle brain himself down to 3 life? Is he going to activate the pay 7 life ability? Or is he going to try to maybe dig through time and try to find the time walk that way? A couple different options here.
It looks like he is content to just flood the board with powerful permanents and feels no need to really rush things. Right. Luis is not playing a deck that can kill out of nowhere, so just winning with a 7/7 lifelink and some counter spells should be more than enough for Shuhei. So the Jace is going to try to flashback Ancestral Recall, but that's not going to work very well in the face of 2 mental missteps.
Actually will resolve in this situation because Shuhei bit on the preordained there. Small victory for Luis, but a nice play nonetheless.
Yeah, the problem now is that he's spent 3 of his mana to resolve the Ancestral, and now even if he draws into what he's looking for, it's going to be tough.
I think that might be enough for Luis. I mean, to be fair, Shuhei's only going to draw maybe 13 cards on his next turn, so...
Shuhei is overwhelmingly likely to win this turn, right? Perhaps not overwhelmingly likely. He has a Black Lotus in his graveyard already.
Yeah.
He's going to see a new creature and a whole bunch more cards. Okay, so I like this play. He's going to cast Dig Through Time just to ensure that his very bottom card isn't the Auriok Salvagers. That's really smart and
also
shows his mastery of this deck.
If Luis were to have some combination of reactive elements in his hand, by digging there and making sure that that you try to find Time Walk, and again, if you have Auriok Salvagers, you can put that towards the bottom of your library. You have multiple different avenues towards a deterministic victory, both the Time Walk into 2 Grizzlebrand attacks and also Oathing into infinite mana plus the Pyrite Spellman combo. So he gave himself a redundancy there. Of course, we know Luis Scott-Vargas had just mana, but a nice play.
So we saw Luis right away bring in about 10 cards off his sideboard. This his configuration is going to change dramatically between Game 1 and Game 2. Shuhei, on the other hand, looks like it's more minor upgrades. His main deck Oath package takes up a lot of slots, difficult to, or restricts his sideboard options a bit, sure. And it looks like he's dedicated his sideboard mostly for the extreme matchups like Workshops and Dredge. So he'll be mostly on the same game plan. Luis will be very different.
And now we see Shuhei with his customary first turn Oath with Orchard, thankfully. I think whatever glitch in Magic Online system has been solved.
Yeah. Luis does have a shot here, though. He has his sideboard card in Containment Priest, and since he's on the play, even without a Mox, he'll be able to get that into play before Shuhei can actually trigger the Oath.
Naturally, Shuhei didn't leave home without multiple different answers to Containment Priest in his opening hand as well.
Although Engineered Explosives may not be a great one if he puts the Oath into play on the first turn.
Right. Luis is not the sort of man that would triflingly mulligan a hand with a Ponder and a basic land in it, right? He's not considering that.
I think we'll see him keep this hand. If the Ponder can find him just one more land, he has a pretty good mix of weapons to try to negate whichever plan Shuhei is on. If he's trying to play Jace, he has Pyroblast. If he's trying to play Oath, he has Containment Priest. And if Shuhei's playing a slower game, Luis can progress his own game plan with the Jace Vryn's Prodigy.
And certainly the Misstep is the right kind of card to complement such a diverse hand of activity, which, if Luis had a Force of Will in his hand, for example, that Jace might be somewhat of a mirage, is really, without white mana, his hand doesn't do anything except play offense, whereas here the Misstep allows him multiple different avenues of threat, while still being able to react to things like, for example, ancestral recall.
So it looks like this oath is going to force Luis to cast a Containment Priest on his own main phase, which unfortunately would open him up to balance. Ooh, however, Ponder also found him a wear tear, so that might be an even better option for Luis to just fetch his Tundra and wear the Oath of Druids.
Although Luis is a lover of
Or is
value.
it tear?
What's that?
Or is it the tear side or the wear side? I'm not sure.
I think it's tear, but Luis is such a lover of value that I think he may be wanting to wait until he can fuse his wear and tear, and it's going to work out really, really badly for him. Because he's going to end up losing a land, part of his hand, and all of his creatures to this balance.
Yeah, balance is an extremely powerful card that I think we don't see quite enough of in Vintage. And it really, really favors the player who has drawn more artifact mana or maybe had more of a chance to put the artifact mana into play.
And Pearl is the perfect card for him to draw there, as it allows him to balance and still leave open blue mana for Ponder and Flusterstorm.
Yeah, it is really perfect. Do you think we'll see him put the engineered explosives into play?
I don't know. I haven't really thought through. I'm so excited by the fact that he's going to be casting an incredible balance here that. So engineered explosives would force Luis to discard an additional card. Is that the idea? Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
He's seeing your line here.
He could play it on 0, which is not particularly effective against Luis's deck, although it can wipe up spirits or Young Pyromancer Monastery Mentor tokens. He could also just tap 2 mana and play it for 2 and then cast balance, but I think, as you mentioned, he wants to keep the Flusterstorm available because this balance is quite important to resolve.
Right.
Although slightly less important to resolve if he does get the explosives on 2 into play.
Yeah, interesting decision point. I think I would tend towards casting it for 2. But certainly couldn't fault the casting it for 0 as well.
He's actually going to cast it for 1. Now, I don't know. Luis has Graph Digger's Cage after sideboard. That's an important one. Also, pretty interesting if Luis has Dak Faden and gains control of the engineer explosives. This will make it less devastating to Shuhei, not killing his boxes. Yeah. So I really like this the way Shuhei's played this turn, and it's pretty devastating for Luis. So Luis forced to keep his 2 answers to Oath of Druids,
and he has to find a land here. And that's going to be it because Shuhei has left that Flusterstorm mana open.
Now Shuhei, masterful here, taps for a blue mana, which Luis cannot respond to the mana ability of the land. Has no other window to cast the tear except in the end step, and Shuhei answers it with Flusterstorm. So wow, a quick win for Shuhei, eliminating Luis from top 4 contention.
And really a masterclass. I mean, obviously we like to enjoy Shuhei's opening draws. He certainly has mastered that art of the game. But even just in terms of the way he sequences his spells, and with the responding with the dig through time in game 1, the way he kind of set up that balance in game 2, not a hair out of place. And there's something to be said for playing the same deck over and over again and mastering all of the different contingencies that could occur during a game of Magic.
Absolutely.
So with that win, Shuhei, I believe, clinches the #1 overall seed in the Vintage Super League and does a bye in the playoffs next week, which is huge for him in terms of being able to advance to the championship. So congratulations to Shuhei Nakamura.
Yeah, so a newcomer to the league, into the top 4, not unlike yourself. And this is the first time in quite a while that we won't see Luis playing for the title.
Now, so let's see, 7-2, 5-3. It looks like a big match coming up here between Eric Froelich and Stephen Menendian. Means more to Efro than it does to Stephen, who's Efro playing for, I believe, positioning here in the top 4, whether there's going to be some sort of a crazy tie or a clean cut with 4, 6, and 3s. So I'm sorry, 3, 6, and 3s, and then Shuhei at 7-2. So we'll see if Eric can throw a wrench in those plans.
All right. Okay, well, we'll be back for the last match of the evening. Stay tuned.